Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allison and today I am doing my April TBR / March wrap-up video. So before we get started, I just want to preface by saying that I did not have a very good reading month in March. So I will explain a little bit of that in just a minute. But I really hope to have a good reading month in April, so I do have a few books picked out that I'm going to just make myself read them because I'm so tired of not reading because I don't feel like I'm in the mood or whatever. So April's gonna be the month of me forcing myself to actually read books. So let's just get started and go ahead with the one book that I read in the month of March. That book was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas, and this, I buddy read this with my friend Brianna, and I was very, I don't know, I want to talk about this book, but also talk about it in a way that doesn't make it seem like I absolutely hate it. I did not really enjoy this book. I found it to be very lacking in certain things. It was boring in parts. There was a whole lot of like nothing happening in this book, unless you count the amount of sex scenes that I had to endure. Now, normally, like, sex scenes in books really don't bother me that much, but these ones were just not what I was expecting. I knew this book I knew it was an adult book going into it. I knew beforehand that it was gonna be, you know, her filthiest book ever. But I didn't expect it to just only be filthy. I was expecting Sarah's normal, captivating, enthralling, just really connecting with the characters and like compelling plot lines and compelling backstories and just complex plots within plots, and this book just doesn't have it. It's 700 and some stupid amount of pages. It's like 752 pages, and the actual plot that occurs in this book is kind of put like to the back. Like, it's not the focus of the story, which is completely crazy to me. Like, there's these crazy things happening within the world of the book, but the main focus is on Nesta and her, like, recovery, which I understand that, but I've read all of Sarah J. Maas's other books, literally all of them. I've read all of them, and every time she has a character who's gone through something traumatic, like, their recovery, I guess you could call it, usually comes about in the way of they're looking for something. They have to conquer something. They have to, they just have to do something. And there really wasn't that aspect to this book. Now, I'm not gonna get spoilery or anything if you haven't read it, but there's just a lot of no plot. Like, there would be something that would happen in the plot, and then it would be like super rushed. It would be very quickly be like, boop, there it is, and then it was gone, and then you're just back to Nesta self-hating and you know, basically all she's doing is self-hating and having sex to vent her frustrations. So there's actually a really good plot hiding in this book. You just don't get to see very much of it, and it's not developed very well. So, and I am not like a Nesta fan. I'm not her, you know, her cheerleader or whatever. I'm not, because like, I don't hate her. I just really don't appreciate her character arc, if that makes any sense. I just don't connect with her very well. So to read this book and to have it not even have a good plot was very disappointing. There are some great relationships in this book, but again, they're not the main focus of, like, the first 500 pages of this book. The main focus is sex. That's just what it is. But once you get to the last 200 or so pages of this book, like, actual things start happening, and like, relationships are developed, and there's some great side characters in this book. I really loved the side characters. The new ones that were brought in, they're just perfect. but there's just so much in this book that is important but does not happen on the main screen. So like picture you have like you have two screens in front of you, and one is just like boring, like it's not really what's the word? It's not, I can't think of the word. It's not, you don't want to really watch it. But then you have a screen like way far off, probably, I don't know, 20 feet away from you, and you can't really see what's happening on it, but it looks way more interesting than this screen that's 5 inches in front of your face. But you don't have access to that other screen. So you're stuck with this thing in the screen in front of you that has something on it that is not even remotely interesting to you, and it's not compelling, and you're just not connecting with it. And then you have like the meat of the story is 20 feet away from you and you can barely see it. That's kind of what it felt like reading this book. I ended up giving it 2 stars, and I had originally rated it 3 stars, and just the more I think about it, the more I dislike about it. So I gave it 2 stars. This is the first Sarah J. Maas book I've ever rated that low. I think the other lowest rating was like 3 stars, and that was for like Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, and those were like her first 2 novels, so that doesn't even really count. I don't know. I wasn't expecting to like this book, so my expectations were already very low, but those expectations were apparently way too high. There's just so much I could say about this book, and if I wanted to hurt a bunch of people's feelings, I would have my husband get on this video and we could discuss this book together, and we would probably crush a lot of people's hearts because I think he likes it less than I do at this point. I'm not really sure. He's reading it right now, and he's had much the same thoughts that I have had about it, so there's that. And I don't know, I feel like this is kind of a minority, it's a minority opinion. Like, not a lot of people hold this opinion. Most reviews I've seen of this book, people have given it 5 stars, and I just can't, because I don't think it's 5-star material. Like, it wasn't even an enjoyable book to read, aside from the plot not being very important in this book. Like, I didn't enjoy any of the parts of this book that were not about the plot. The only parts I did enjoy were the parts about the plot. And the last thought I have about this book. The storyline that is woven into this book with Rysand and Feyre should not be in this book at all whatsoever. It is literally there for plot convenience for Nesta, and it makes me so angry. There's a lot of plot things in this book that is just like, oh, that only happened, so this could happen. Like, how convenient. And like, you can literally like follow the setup of each plot twist or plot reveal that there is. Like, oh, I saw this coming like 300 pages ago because you literally set it up for that. I was expecting more than that from a so-called adult fantasy novel, and this book just doesn't have it. This is basically smut pretending to be fantasy. So I'm just gonna stop talking about this book because I'm just getting riled up about it. So we're just gonna be done. So that means we're on to my April TBR. So the first book I have on my April TBR is actually one that I'm currently reading, and that is The Fellowship of the Ring. So this would have been my other book that I read in March. This would have been my second book, but I just have not been, I don't know. Don't know if I haven't been in a reading mood or if I'm just not making the time to read. I'm not really sure. This book I will be continuing into April, and then to follow that up, I will also be reading The Two Towers. The Two Towers is significantly smaller than The Fellowship of the Ring, and I'm not really sure if it's because there's actually less story in here or if it's just because there's less appendices. I'm not 100% sure on that. So I'm about, let's see, I'm 168 pages into The Fellowship of the Ring. So I have just over half of it left, and then, I mean, obviously I haven't started this one yet. So, and I'm doing this as, I was intending to do this as part of the readathon, the Lord of the Rings readathon that Books with Brittany is hosting, but I just don't have time to be involved in a huge bookish community. Like, I don't have hours of my day to sit, you know, on Discord or Bookstagram or whatever and just talk about the books I'm reading. So I did start it because she was hosting a readathon, but I really haven't been keeping up with any of the stuff that's been going on with it just because I don't have time / I don't care. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just read these at my own pace. I really don't care if it takes me forever. So the plan with this is I'm going to be reading, probably attempting to read a chapter every couple of days and then reading something else alongside of it so that I'm not getting bogged down by the literature in these books. This is a reread. I've read these already. I don't know. I feel like I need to be reading more than just this at a time because it took me a whole week to read one chapter because I just wasn't picking it up. So that's the plan for that, and I will also be doing the same thing with the Two Towers. I'll be setting a schedule for myself so that I just read like a chapter every other day, and that it really doesn't take that long. It's just me making the time to do it. So those are the first 2 books on my TBR. The next book is The Raven and the Dove by Kaitlyn Davis, and this is a buddy read I'm doing with my friend Brianna, and I'm really excited. I have read this book already. I actually read it before it was released. I was able to get it on NetGalley, and I absolutely loved it. It's a YA fantasy novel, and I was not expecting to love it whatsoever because I normally don't, and you can hate me for saying this, but I normally don't read self-published novels just because let's see, how can I say this? I don't have time to weed through all of the gems from the trash. Unless someone can take a self-published book and just be like all of these reasons why you should read this book, I probably am not going to pick one up just because I don't have time for that kind of stuff. So this was a chance. I took a chance on this one. I absolutely loved it. I flew right through it. So my friend Brianna's been wanting to read these, and I asked her if she wanted to buddy read it with me, even though I've already read this. I was like, I'll just read it with you again. It's been over a year since I read it, and I need a refresher anyways, because I haven't read the second book either, and the third book is coming out in June. So I was like, let's just read it together. I know I've already read it, but it's going to be fun, and maybe it will make a little bit more sense to me the second time around. So I'm really excited to get to read this book again, and then next month read the sequel. The next book on my list, on my TBR, is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. Now, I have had this book on my TBR for like a million years. Like literally since I got it in September last year, I've literally had it on every single TBR. It's been on my TBR every month, and I just haven't read it, and I don't know why. Or the other day that I wanted to read this book, I was like, I'm just not really in the mood for anything, and I was like, oh, that sounds like maybe I want to read that book. And I still literally don't know anything about it. I haven't read more other than like the back. I've read the back of it, and I think I've read like the bold blurb on the top. Like I have not read anything else, so I really don't know what it's about, other than it's hecka big, and it's probably gonna take me forever to read it. But I just want to read it. I just want to feel accomplished, and I want to read something good. After reading A Court of Silver Flames, that was, you know, almost 800 pages long, and having it being such a disappointment, I want to read an equally large book that is potentially going to be better. So I'm really looking forward to reading this in April, and this is definitely going to be one of the ones that I'm going to make time for. So when I was picking out my April books, I kind of just was looking at my unread shelf, and I'm like, I just picked off the books that stood out to me the most. I was like, I want to read that one. I've been wanting to read that one. So I just grabbed those ones. So there really is no rhyme or reason to these books being on my TBR other than the fact that they were sticking out to me on my shelves. So the next book I have is Dune by, I always forget the author's name, Frank Herbert. And this is a classic science fiction novel. I think it's almost considered science fiction fantasy at this point. But I have had this book on my shelves since October, maybe? I don't know. I haven't had it for very long, but I've been wanting to read it. I just want to know what it's about. So I've gotten to the point where I'm just tired of it sitting on my shelves, and I'm super curious to know what it's about, and I just want to read it. I just want to read it and enjoy it and hopefully love it, so then I can read the 50 other books that are in this world or series. I don't know how it works out. I haven't done the proper research into it yet. So I know this one is like huge. This one is basically just as big as all of the other ones, but I just really want to read it. Let's see how many pages it is. It's like 600, okay, it's 603 pages, so it's not super huge. It just looks really thick, and I think it's because the paper that they use to print the book on is really thick. So I don't know. I really just want to give it a chance, and I actually really hope that I love it, because I need some books in my life that I love right now. The next book on my list is Foundry Side by Jackson Bennett. I almost said Robert Jordan, and I'm like, that is not the right author. That is not it. So this is a science fiction fantasy, and I don't know anything about it other than I don't know if it's urban. It might be, I can't remember, but I know there's magic in it. And I also have the sequel that I haven't read yet. Obviously, I haven't. Why would I even say that? Why would you say you haven't read the sequel if you haven't read the first book? Who does that? I do that, apparently. And I have not read anything else by him, by this author. But I saw this cover and I was like, that's really pretty. I think I need that in my life. So I bought this, and then I bought the second one, and I'll probably buy the third one when it comes out, even if I haven't read this yet, because I don't know. Okay, quiz time. Does this happen to anybody else? Like, you have a book on your shelves that you really want to read, but it's like the first book in a trilogy, and you keep putting it off. You keep putting off reading it because you feel like you need to have the rest of the trilogy or series, even though you haven't read the first book, because what if you love it and you absolutely have to have the next book in the series? Like, is it just me that does that? I don't feel like it's just me. Is this like a bookworm problem? I used to buy like full series or full trilogies all at one time, and then I realized that was a really bad, expensive mistake to make because I usually wasn't interested in it. So I've been trying to make myself not buy more than the first book in the series, especially if I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it. The only time that is an exception to the rule is if the book is a UK hardcover that I want, because they don't keep those in print very long. So if it's a UK hardcover that I want, I will just buy it, even if I haven't read the first book or whatever, because I don't want to miss out. And I could always, you know, sell it if I don't end up liking it. So that was an aside. I'm sorry. I will try to stay more focused. So yes, that is Foundry Side. And I really literally don't know anything about this book, like at all. I don't know. Other than it's an adult fantasy novel. But anyways, on to the last book on my list. So I talked about this book at length on my March TBR, and I was really, really pumped to read it, and then I just didn't read it. So we have, again, Black Sun on my TBR for April, and I swear I'm going to read this book. I have to read this book. I really, really want to. I'm so curious about it. Like, I don't know, I just really, really want to read it. Is that, like, that's a thing, right? I know I've said it a million times, but I'm not one that has to get on Goodreads and read the synopsis and read a bunch of reviews before I decide on a book. Usually, okay, this is my thought process. I see a book, I think the cover's pretty, someone else liked it, so I buy it. That's literally how this works for me. It's why I have a copy of this book, because I saw the cover and it was pretty and someone liked it and I bought it. And I don't regret it, because I am going to read this book. So that is it for my April TBR. It got a little bit long, it got a little ranty, but that's normal. This is just me. This is how I communicate about books. And I feel like it should be okay to rant about books. Like, you can't be like super tolerant all the time. Like, you have to take a stand on something at some point. And I take my stand with books, because I feel like that's probably the safest place to take a stand. Maybe not. Sometimes it's not very safe, but at least I'm just talking about a book and not like another person. I don't know. Does that make sense? Am I trying to justify it too much? I don't know. But anyways, so this has been a long ranty video, and if you've watched this long, you're awesome. Thank you for hanging around, and I'm just gonna wrap up, and I hope I'll see you guys in another video. Bye!